Welcome to episode 59 of the American Regularis Podcast. As always, I'm your host, JD Walter, and we have a jam-packed episode today. You're going to want to stick around. Some of this is because I got caught up on 4th of July weekend, and I missed last week, so I apologize for that. The other part is because lots, and I mean a lot of things, have been going on, and we're going to cover all of those here today. And kind of look at it through a lens of what does this mean for Trump and the MAGA movement. Obviously, lately, there's been a lot of friction between Trump and, conservative base, notably from libertarians or more libertarian-leaning conservatives, but also, obviously, always from the left. And we're just going to look at all the different things that have been going on, whether it's Iran, Ukraine, obviously Elon Musk starting the America Party, and also the recent news this morning that not only did Jeffrey Epstein not kill himself, as reported by the Department of Justice or National Intelligence or just the Trump administration in general, but also that there is no client list, which is, flies in the face of what they ran on, what they were saying once they were in office. We're going to catch all of that. Before we get into it, though, please give me a like, subscribe, tell your friends, contact me through email at AmericanRegularisPodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at reg_American1. Now, let's not beat around the bush anymore. Let's skin this cat. Starting off, I had left you guys talking about Iran, and this was before Trump actually we're going back just a little bit, ended up attacking 3 different bases. Or maybe they had just did it when I had last reported on this podcast or gave the last episode out. And a lot of conservatives are hailing this as a huge win, and they've said, oh, look at the egg on your face for all you anti-war people. Trump called it a 12-day war, and it's miraculous. And even though we haven't actually got to examine the sites, they say, hey, it's all been taken care of. We've gotten rid of their nuclear program, which wasn't, anywhere close to a nuclear bomb. We've talked about it before. It was a latent nuclear threat, as Scott Horton puts it. They had above levels of nuclear enrichment, up to like 60%. But the whole point of that was to say, leave us alone, right? That way they could potentially create one if they were attacked. The libertarian viewpoint is when Trump attacked them, it gave them much more incentive to go forward. Now, the counter to that would be, did the bombings of Fordro, and the other nuclear facilities, did that deter them? Did that take it out to where it just set them back so far? It's up in the air. They say it did. Obviously, we can't have eyes on the ground confirming it, and Iran has made steps saying they're not going to be as forthright with people doing inspections and stuff anymore. What this seems like to me is kind of the example of it was reckless, okay? And look, it hasn't started a war yet. It seems like it's done. Civilian casualties were low. So in all of that, yes, great. I'm glad to be wrong on that. I'll say that right now. As of right now, my fears of this didn't come to fruition as of yet, and it looks like it might not. Great. I love being wrong about that. Iran is a country of 90 million people, as Ted Cruz famously didn't know with, all of his blunders on the Tucker Carlson interview. It doesn't mean that it wasn't reckless. We've seen ourselves get bogged down in war after war, whether it's direct involvement with 20 years in Iraq, or whether it's, this huge amount of money wasted on a war without hope in Ukraine. And this to me seems kind of reminiscent of a drunk driver. He gets in the vehicle, he's had too much to drink, he said, hey, this is a big risk. He makes it home safe. That happens sometimes, right? And then he looks at you and says, see, dumbass, look what I told you. I made it home just fine. And it's like, okay, it worked out this time. it doesn't mean that that's the plan of attack or that should be our new policy moving forward. It was still very dangerous. And calling it a 12-day war and the success is completely foreign. This is very short-sighted, and this is reminiscent to George Bush saying mission accomplished. Maybe it is. Maybe this is the last we've heard of it. But foreign policy and attacks, I mean, these things, the blowback, as quoted by Chalmers Johnson and is often talked by Ron Paul, these things aren't contained within days or months. These things can have long-term consequences down the line. So look, for the more MAGA-oriented people that listen to this, I hope you're right. Yep, I do. I really do. And you can call me a doom and gloom guy or black-pilled or whatever, some peacenik that's scared of conflict or whatever. Do all that. I hope it worked out this time. But let's say it does. And this is just unadmittedly, we look down 10 years later and it was a great success, and we find out that, hey, they really were deciding in 2025 after 30 years of Netanyahu saying the exact same thing, that we stopped all of this. Great. But in truth, it still puts the neoconservative plans, what are they, like 1 for 30? Like, it's still a very bad win percentage. I don't say this to just say, I'm not trying to be the turd in the punch bowl who has to, try to make excuses. That's not what it is. I hope you guys are right. But if we look at history, this was a bad gamble. And it has been a little divisive. Now, when you look, and this is a problem with libertarians such as myself, whether you're a libertarian, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you get on Twitter and there is a huge echo chamber. If I was to base what the U.S. population was off my algorithm, you would think libertarians were 80%. We'd have this huge majority. Ron Paul would have been a 2-term president if it was my algorithm that did the voting, right? My echo chamber. And I think that's important to note. And I think libertarians are particularly bad at recognizing this sometimes, just how small of a fish we are when compared to the duopoly or the uniparty, if you want to put it that way, because there's a fair amount of people on the left that said, yeah, we got to do this, right? Whether it's buffering, or, aiding Israel or going into wars. We've seen the left and the right, whatever they preach, they're usually bad at it. And we're going to get to Trump on the big, beautiful bill here in a second. I think as libertarians, we have to remember just how much in the minority we are. So we have so much to talk about. I really don't want to talk too much more on Iran. Time will tell. Right now, it looks like we got out pretty unscathed on all of this. It's still against my principles, but I'm willing to concede that as of right now, it does look like the actions of Trump and his administration on direct engagement with the Iranians hasn't been as disastrous as it could have, and I am grateful for that. However, this is just one of many things that, and overall, I think this has been good for Trump politically. I think they're hailing it as a win, and I think I'm certain most of the Republican MAGA base has been very in favor of his strategy in Iran. A little more controversial, but still, when dealing with the echo chamber, I think it's still considered a win for Trump, which is infuriating, is his big, beautiful bill passing in the House. At one point, Thomas Massie thought he had enough conservative votes to block the big, beautiful bill. I hate calling it that. You could just call it Trump's Build Back Better bill. And it's just this huge omni bill that's going to raise the debt trillions of dollars. So like I said, sometimes when the left used to talk about being good at anti-war, neoconservative stuff, they've fallen on their face. And this is just one in another long line of the conservatives showing their true colors about increasing the debt, increasing the deficit, this is just a talking point for them. You have guys like Ted Cruz. You have guys like Mike Lee and J.D. Vance, all these guys that are supposed to be pretty principled conservatives. And they're hailing this as this victory for this big, beautiful bill. You can't call a big bill beautiful, honestly, if you hold true to small government principles. And it's, after 5 years, it's supposed to help out. It's going to reduce the deficit after 5 years, according to the people promoting it. Of course, Trump won't be in there in 5 years and stuff will go around. What we do know is the spending has just continued and there will be lots of waste, fraud, and abuse throughout it. That's the nature of the beast. If you don't believe me, look at any basic graph on deficits, on debt, and tell me that at $36 trillion, will Mike Johnson say now's not the time to pull back, to push the brakes a little bit, pull off the throttle a little bit on spending? No, we got to increase now. Why? Good Lord, why? It's absolutely dishonest and antithetical to conservative economic and governmental principles. This, I believe, is a lot more controversial for the MAGA movement. And we know that for several reasons. Like I said, my echo chamber has been extremely against the big, beautiful bill. It's basically everyone's saying, Ron Paul and Thomas Massie were right. The libertarians that were for Trump have done an about face by and large. And if they haven't at this point, you can do the no true Scotsman thing, but I have a hard time seeing how a person that labels himself a libertarian could at this point be pro-Trump. This reminds me somewhat of Ron Paul in Reagan's first term, or first election. He supported him. He endorsed him. He said, yes, Ronald Reagan, let's go for him. And then after his first budget came out, he was like, I regret it, right? He was principled. I think any libertarian that looks at these first months of the Trump presidency that were in big support of Trump have to say, no, I was wrong. For me, personally, I didn't vote for Trump. I wrote in Ron Paul. Because, I make no mistake, I was rooting hard for Trump, and you can go back and listen to my podcast, and I was debating voting for Trump, but mainly because of the foreign policy, which has been a boondoggle. He's done terrible at Ukraine. He's going to end it on day one. He hasn't done that. Now he's gotten us in bombing Iran, supporting Israel more, and their just atrocities in Palestine and this escalation in the Middle East. It's been an abject failure. I never had confidence in his economic policies. I didn't think the tariffs were a smart idea. This big, beautiful bill is absolutely atrocious. And this seems to be upsetting more of the principled conservatives, apart from just libertarians. Like I said, I was for Trump mainly on the foreign policy. It's been an abject failure. And when we look at these first few months of Donald Trump's second term as president, he has already failed so much of what he promised, which makes him a lot more like the politicians that we're used to than MAGA would care to admit. Yes, he's very different. He's, I guess somewhat iconic or infamous character. Maybe a little bit of both on that, or a lot of bit of both on that. But when you strip this weird abrasive veneer that is Donald Trump, and you just look at what he does, what his policies are, his foreign policy, his spending, he's just not that damn different. Like I said, this could be Build Back Better 2.0. It's more spending. The only thing that Trump seems to be doing successfully so far on what he ran on, and by the way, people that have been around as long as me know that what people run on is generally what you don't get. But the only thing he seems to have had success on so far is he is aggressively going after the border problem, the border crisis, immigration and stuff. It still remains to be seen. That's a huge mountain to move. And that's not going to be a 12-day war, right? That's going to be something that he'll have to aggressively go at for 4 years to make a real dent. And it has to be popular enough to carry over to see significant change in that. So what are his other failures? I already mentioned the Ukraine war. And while it seems the U.S. was getting ready to stop funding, now they've been talking to Zelensky about possibly bringing back, providing more Patriot missiles. Now, a lot of this seems to be that we want to... Look, this war in Ukraine has been over for a long time. Even though the fighting's been long and slow, the result of the war has been inevitable for a while. And for Trump to say that he was going to end it on day one would have meant that he was giving the Russians some good concessions because the outcome was already inevitable. So far, he's failed to do anything like that. And because Trump and his foreign policy people have had not offered up any real concessions, he has been completely impotent in slowing down this war. Now, as he stops funding it, it will probably speed up stuff. But I mean, the Russians are already at the Dnieper River. So it's too little too late in terms of loss of human life. I mean, how many people have already died? We still need to end it. Trump should still try to end it as soon as possible. But at this point, it just doesn't seem like what concessions can you give the Russians that they can't take themselves? And we know this. Trump went from saying all throughout the campaign, I'm just tired of people dying. He didn't. One of his best moments of the election was they're like, do you want Russia to win the war? He goes, I just want people to stop dying. That was what made me root so damn hard for him. He's went from that to recently in an interview going, sometimes it's like you just got to let the boys fight until the adult steps in. The adult should have stepped in a long time ago. Ukraine is badly beaten and bloodied and maimed. But it just shows you how ineffective he's been in his foreign policy and trying to end that war. So when it finally comes and Russia takes stuff, maybe there will be some sort of ceasefire or peace treaty at the end, but it's after the Russians have already got whatever they've wanted. And it'll be very hard for Trump's people to try to spin that as him having anything to do with it. So far, he's just really, like I said, I can't repeat it enough. He's been extremely ineffective at this bold talk he had of ending the war quickly. He's done terrible. And simultaneously, he's brought us in to military engagements against Iran, and he's supporting Israel against Palestine. It's been absolutely terrible. From a conservative point of view, just looking from a purely pecuniary or financial standpoint, it's been terrible. When you add in the amount of young Ukrainian men, women, and children, and the Russians too, they just continue to die. It's been atrocious. Now, the big beautiful bill has been a little more divisive. I said so earlier, the echo chambers are always misleading. They're always misleading. It does seem, though, that a much larger margin of conservatives are not happy with the big beautiful bill as compared to Iran. And overall, I think the general populace, the voting, the American voting bloc or whatever you want to call it, they've pretty much quit caring about Ukraine, which is sad. So sad. Where do we go from here with MAGA? And when I say we, I should say, where do they go from here? Because they are divided on this bill. It increases the debt. So anyone that is an economic conservative can't really like it. It still provides welfare benefits to illegals. There's still a ton. And guys like Charlie Kirk, guys like Ben Shapiro, obviously, and guys like Ted Cruz, they go, oh, look at all this stuff in this bill that we can like. And they'll label it. But they don't label all the terrible stuff. None of them have talked about the deficit increase. And if they do, they whitewash it with how it's actually going to decrease the deficit over time, which is just false. And that leads us to where we can see people that aren't necessarily libertarian but have more libertarian principles are kind of rebelling against this, thankfully. And most notable of all of those is Elon Musk. Whatever, they called it the bromance during the election, and Elon Musk is secretly president, is what the left said. It's went from that to Elon Musk saying that Trump was on the Epstein list, more on that in a second, to Trump and Musk just falling out, Musk completely disaffiliating with MAGA and saying, hey, this is inappropriate, and wanting to start his own party. Now, we've seen third parties. People have tried it for forever. I'm a registered libertarian, and it's what would you call that? It's kind of a futile stance, right? I don't see the Libertarian Party ever becoming a major party in my lifetime, and that's a shame. Elon Musk is one of the richest men in the world. His party could potentially have a lot more impact than I think some people believe. I think a lot of people go, okay, Musk's goose is cooked, he's an egomaniac, and because he fell out with Trump, he's just trying to spurn him, and all that it's going to do is give the Democrats a win in the next election. He'll just steal votes, which is what libertarians are constantly accused of doing. Now, the difference is libertarians in the last election had a terrible candidate and pulled like 1%. So it really, and a lot of those were people that were never going to vote for Trump anyways. A lot of libertarians did vote for Trump who are now regretting it. And Trump was still able to win. The funding that Elon Musk can fund more than the entire Libertarian Party times 10 or whatever, more than that. You do the math. That makes a big difference. This is reminiscent to Ross Perot in the early 90s. This wealthy billionaire speaking out against the debt, speaking out against the Federal Reserve and all of these things. This could be a real game changer. Now, does that mean that they could easily take the presidency in 2028? No, I don't think so. But what could it do? Like the Republicans that are upset about it, many say, hey, you're just going to steal votes from the Republicans. You're going to put the government, you're just going to give the Democrats the presidency. You guys are idiots for doing that. I can't object more to that. When in the first few months of your presidency, first half year of your second term as president, you've not delivered on any of your promises. Why should they vote for you? You've got us into another war. Although it may be, you risked it. Ukraine, you fell through. You said day one. Then you said, we'll give them the first 100 days. That's hyperbolic. We know how Trump speaks. Fine. First 100 days have come and gone. And he's about faced completely to the point is, we just got to let him fight it out. So he's failed on the foreign policy. On the economy, whatever benefits have happened from the tariffs, there probably are some, right? We've had some different countries negotiate and reduce their tariffs against the U.S. That's fine. Great. But inflation will still rise with this, especially with this big, beautiful bill. He talked about inflation about as much as people can care to stomach it during the election. It was a big deal back then. This big, beautiful bill will continue to raise inflation and has done nothing different from Joe Biden in that regard. So he's failed on that front. The immigration, he is seemingly much more serious on his approach to what he was campaigning for. That's such a tall task, though. As I said, it remains to be seen. And this kind of is bringing me up to my last point. And this morning, Pam Bondi, Donald Trump, the Donald Trump administration, they've all said, hey, and we saw Kash Patel on Joe Rogan a few weeks ago talking about the Epstein files. Hey, we've got the video when there used to not be video, and we're going to show it to you, but don't expect anything. It's nothing. And they released an 11-hour video, and the video's not of Epstein's cell. It's of a door that goes into the cell block. From what I haven't seen this video yet, what I've heard reported is that it just shows the door going into the cell block, and for 11 hours, it doesn't show people going in. Okay, 11 hours. Like, that tells us absolutely nothing. It does. It tells us nothing. You could have had a guy go in there, 12 hours before. The guy could have been in there for a week. There could have been other ways to get in. I don't know. It could have been doctored. It could have been, the timestamps could have been edited. It really doesn't tell us much. And you can call me conspiratorial, but yes, in this case, I am, because it is wildly obvious that there was a conspiracy involving Jeffrey Epstein and a sex trafficking scandal. It's more than apparent to anybody who isn't drinking the Kool-Aid. And when you listen to people like Pam Bondi, when you listen to people like Kash Patel, Donald Trump, all of these people, during the election, they were all on board with that. And we don't even have to go back that far. After the election, we remember the little publicity stunt of Pam Bondi handing these folders of absolutely no significance to a bunch of conservative pundits and what do you call them? Social, whatever it is. What the hell am I trying to be? Social media influencer. I'm doing the podcast. I really don't do much on social media. All these people holding up their little binders and saying, oh, look, we got it. And then it was a big nothing burger, as people say. Not only has that never came to fruition, now they're saying, hey, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself, which flies in the face of what common knowledge and everyone that was running on the Trump administration was saying beforehand. And now they're saying, not only did he not kill himself, also there's no client list. We got nothing. So I don't know what those, 20 or 30,000 files or whatever it was in Upper New York District, the FBI, remember reporting on that? All of that was nothing. There's not a client list. There's nothing. Turns out Jeffrey Epstein was just, sex trafficking for love of the game. He became a extremely wealthy, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but $100 millionaire out of nowhere. He used to be a teacher. All of his ties, all of Ghislaine Maxwell's ties, all of that was just one big coinky-dink, right? That's fueling our conspiracies. That's what makes us these tinfoil hat people that think there might have been some sort of government ties, whether it was Israel's government or America's government, with Jeffrey Epstein. All of this is, hey, no big deal, didn't happen. Everything we said leading up to it was just another campaign lie, apparently. Now, the problem is, as I said earlier, they were saying this after the presidency. This client list that doesn't exist is extremely peculiar because at one point, the Attorney General of the United States said it was on her desk. Don't believe me? Listen up.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So, now Trump, who Republicans love saying he's the most honest guy, who he lies all the time, his attorney general and him have went from it was his directive to look at it. It's sitting on her desk. Maybe something that should have been high up on her little clipboard on the to-do list, right? Maybe have a little post-it note that says, don't forget to read the Epstein client list that people have been frothing about, righteously so, for a long time. We're talking about nefarious deeds by a twisted, dark person who likely had government contact, was involved intimately with the government. He got the sweetheart deal down in Florida for the first time. He had rubbed elbows with Trump, with Bill Clinton, with Bill Gates, whoever else. All of this. Don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe their lying mouths. Nothing happened. There's no list. It was a suicide, even though I forget the guy's name, but like a very highly prestigious and credentialed coroner said, this looks weird. He's got multiple fractures in his neck. You can't do that. It would take a freak chance for that to happen. Hanging oneself from such a small place. You'd have to tie it perfectly. You'd have to try to figure out how to make that much force. Very suspicious. No, not the case. I do not believe that for a second. I don't think you do either. And how does MAGA move forward from here? They've lied about foreign policy. Clearly. Whether he wanted to or not, he didn't come through with what he said. But then you're going to lie about the client list. You're either lying about it now or you're lying about it being on your desk. Which one is it? Doesn't matter. It does. But in the terms of you being a liar, it doesn't matter because you've spoke out both sides of your mouth. It's confirmed. Pam Bondi and the Trump administration has lied to us. Has lied to us about Jeffrey Epstein. Right? That's supposed to be the what Biden was doing, which he was. And MAGA, as always, bends over backwards, defending Trump. Well, if Trump, some people say, well, Trump's not releasing it because he was on the list. He's definitely in the files. We know that there was some relationship. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was friends with him. I think he referred to him as a friend before. They rubbed shoulders together. MAGA says, well, that would, obviously, if there was anything about Trump, they would have released it. Right? This is this mutually assured destruction thing. And the Republicans go, no, they would have released anything on Trump. I'm not so sure about that, depending on what it was. Also, this is speculation. This is pure speculation at my point. There's files. We know there's files. I believe that they would have released information on Jeffrey Epstein and the client list and his deeds if they could have done it without directly implicating the federal government. Everyone wants to think that Trump is this complete maverick in there. And he's a loose cannon, I'll give you that. But he still falls in line with the deep state more than MAGA cares to believe, more than they will admit. And whether it's from pressure, whether it's from Trump doing a pros and cons list, I don't know. But I don't believe they could have released those files without condemning or damning evidence that pointed to either the U.S. or Israeli government. That's why we're not getting those files. That's why the client list that was on her desk, actually, it was Schrodinger's list, right? It was there until she looked at it, and then it just disappeared. That's why. So, not my happiest podcast, not my happiest take, anything other than possibly immigration at this point that Trump was supposed to rectify or at least throw a wrench into. I never expected him. There was a thing on Twitter that showed him sitting around. The founding fathers were behind him, and he's signing the big, beautiful bill with a quill on parchment. And it is, I think Chris Rossini posted that. Great follow on Twitter. There is nothing about the big, beautiful bill that should hearken memories or echoes of the principles of the founding fathers. That is just so dumb. He has done nothing past immigration so far on what he said he was going to do. He has not showed himself to be distinguishable from the Biden administration at this point. And if he has, it's been extremely marginal. All the excitement, all the optimism that I and MAGA and libertarians and honestly, I talked to some people that were pretty far on the left that still was like, hey, this DOGE thing, the Department of Government Efficiency, this might not be the worst thing. I'm willing to look at it. And the big, beautiful bill kills that. That was the best thing Trump had going for him was DOGE. The big, beautiful bill kills it. So what are we left with? We're left with a president who brands himself as this renegade, rogue maverick, right? He's upending, overturning the apple cart, or I don't even know the expression. But he's going to be this mover and shaker. And he says inflammatory stuff, and he wears his hat, and he likes to pick on people, and I'm all for that. I like it when he makes enemies of the government. But just check the stat line. He's all hat and no cowboy. He has done very little different from George W. Bush. Or George W. Bush. He's done very little different from Obama and Biden. It looks remarkably similar. He's inflammatory. All that part's very different. Like I said, he has the trappings of a maverick or a rogue or whatever. But when you look at the baseline, foreign policy still sucks. Foreign entanglements, foreign aid, it's all still there. Inflation, still there. Deficit, increased deficit spending, increased debt, still there. Lying about intelligence reports, about Jeffrey Epstein, the lies are still there. Actually, they're more concrete lies than even during Biden. At least they just put it under the rug and said best not to look here. Trump said we're looking into it, we got our best guys on it, and it's nothing. He's running cover for him. An absolutely horrible first year for President Trump. We've also seen people like Tulsi Gabbard. She had shirts on at one point that she was selling that was like no war with Iran. And here she is carrying water for these attacks. J.D. Vance, people are going, well, he's going to be different. He's going to be different. And J.D. Vance didn't actually like it. He looked solemn when Trump was announcing it. Okay, great. I was very impressed with some of J.D. Vance's speeches. But what is he doing? He's backing the big, beautiful bill. That's not a conservative principle. He's losing credibility. And if he can't butt heads with Trump on basic conservative principles, then he's not a conservative. And guess what? That might not hurt him that much because the Republicans have time and time again showed us that they aren't actually economically conservative at all. They spend as much as the Democrats. They're as wasteful as the Democrats. Their foreign policy is the same as the Democrats. It is a uniparty. Make no mistake about it. So where do we go from here? I don't know. I would love Thomas Massie to run as the American Party presidential candidate in 2028. Now, I know this is all early. I don't even know if Musk has said that he's going to run a presidential candidate. I assume that's the point. No one would be better than Thomas Massie, and I don't think he would win the presidency. But to get him, his principles, his intelligence, his record, his relatableness, aside from that, to get him in the debates would be huge. It would be the best messenger I can think of at this point. Ron Paul will be in his 90s by that time. He would be the best candidate possible to promote real small government libertarian principles. I hope so much that Thomas Massie does that, and Elon Musk puts him there. At the same time, I don't think that will win him the presidency, and I think it would very, very likely ensure the Democrats to win. And look, I'm going to make a lot of people annoyed with this podcast, but if Trump's not going to do any of the things he said, and if he's not going to reduce the size of government, which isn't a shock to me, but if he's not going to do any of that, then what are you voting for? You're just voting for the red team to win, but they act the exact same as the blue? They're the uniparty. It's got to be annoying for the left, too, when everything they vote for, and I hear it, I've got good friends on the left. They didn't like Kamala. They didn't like Biden. I knew a lot of guys. I had a professor who was far left, hated Obama because he never delivered on his promises, because they all capitulate. And I think, is it Michael Malice or Tom Woods, right? No matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. And that's what we've got. We've got neoconservative foreign policy and big spending. And yes, Biden deserved to lose that election. And as of right now, the Republicans deserve to lose the next election. You want to prove me wrong? Fine. Well, get Mike Johnson out of there. Trump better find some change of heart. Quit listening to Lindsey Graham. Quit listening to Ted Cruz. Start listening to Thomas Massie, who he's calling a fraud and a huckster and a traitor or whatever. When the Republicans lose at this point, it will be purely their fault, and they will have deserved every vote cast against them. For the Republicans that are listening, you can be mad at me. You can be frustrated with me. But for the love of God, be frustrated at Trump. Be frustrated at Mike Johnson and all of these conservatives who are voting for increasing the deficit by trillions of dollars, for canceling out the Department of Government Efficiency, for entangling us in wars and spending. billions upon billions of dollars on countries like Ukraine and Israel, while our pocketbooks continue to get thinner and thinner as inflation ruins our dollar and our economy. Be frustrated at them, and then if you want to be frustrated at me at this point, I get it. I'm not a fan of the Democrats. I'm not saying that I'm going to be excited when some far-left Democrat gets in. Of course, they won't be as far left once they're in. They'll revert to this centrist deep state government thing of spending and foreign policy. If they're whatever they're good at, I expect them fully to capitulate to it and just serve the deep state uniparty. Okay. This was a pretty negative, pretty whiny episode. But to be fair, what else would you expect to hear from me on this? I mean, this is just disgusting. The Epstein thing is just the icing on the cake. I was already planning on saying, like, look at all the failures of Donald Trump. And then this morning, the Epstein client list suddenly never existed. Is that, I want one, if you're a MAGA voter, if you're like, hey, I'm deep MAGA, I'm Trump no matter what, tell me, please, and I'm meaning this honestly, like, I would love to hear your guys' justifications. Email me at American Regularis Podcast at gmail.com, or respond to me on, message me on Twitter, right? Reg_American1. Please, I would love to hear your take, and I'd love to critique it or examine it, talk honestly on it on the next episode. Please tell me how this is America first. Please tell me how this is making America great again. And I will try to be as unsnarky and pedantic as I can be. I will try to give you a very honest examination of your thoughts on how this is America first, on how lying about Epstein, getting us involved in more foreign entanglements, spending, not ending any wars, increasing the deficit. Please tell me how this is make America great again. America first. All right. Hopefully we have some sort of good news next week, whether it's whatever, statewide, foreign policy, whatever. Maybe Trump does something wonderful next week and I can sing his praises. I would love that. Just like I wanted to be wrong about Iran, and maybe I am, I would love to be wrong about where I see the Trump administration at this point. I would love for him to surprise me again and for me to re-examine this. But I don't see it happening. This has been a terrible, terrible first year thus far, and we're only halfway through it for the Trump presidency. All right. Thank you for listening. Whether you liked hearing what I had to say or not, if you're still here, really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.